Okay, the next point in your 5-step program here, it's kind of like the 3-step program, right? Your 5-step program.
Flexibility.
Okay, and flexibility, that is something that is actually, I think, really hard in some cases for an e-commerce website, is to show flexibility in what we can offer to a customer. You know, a customer may say, hey, I need this on a certain date. That's easy enough to maybe build in, but maybe, you know, I don't exactly like what you're offering there. You know, you're offering this in red and I need it in blue.
Yeah, I think this is useful, you know, when you're talking about that retail experience. What you probably want to do for this one is to break down the different things that may be sources of divergence for, you know, where the flexibility might be called for. So I guess the first thing is to think about offerings. And I would say this is even before the idea of whether you've got what you're supposed to have. I'm saying, is your offering exactly what somebody's shopping for, or is it something different? And do you need to be proactive? Because in the competitive world, you got to realize some things have one competitive advantage, some have another. How can you make sure that you help somebody understand that your product might be a little bit different, but it's got one advantage versus another, or that what some people might consider a limitation? I used to mention another very specific product that a restaurant company I was dealing with was shopping for. They were looking at a security camera solution. And what really fascinated me about one of the providers is one of the providers said, why we don't sell wireless cameras. Now, normally you'd think, oh, someone's shopping, they might want wired, they might want wireless, and if you don't sell one of them, maybe we'll just kind of lay low about that. And they said, why we don't sell them? And they said, we feel there's this and this advantage of wired, and the drawbacks you fear aren't so bad because of this and this. And I thought that was brilliant. They actually had a proactive, I would say, direction to help somebody understand that they don't just have limited offerings, they have offerings that are carefully chosen with the customer in mind. So that would be one piece of it. And then the other thing I would say in the same flexibility realm is take a look at the things that are often the source of someone's, I would say, hopes on your site. When I say hopes, I mean they see what's presented and they hope they can arrange it a certain way. Be it color, be it options, be it what's packed with what. You know, does something come with a certain set of things or accessories? Be it shipping time or means or method. And yet, take a look at all of those things and consider, where do you have the opportunity to offer options? Where don't you? And here's something that I'd suggest. This is something a lot of companies don't consider. If there's something that people might want, but it would be, you would consider it prohibitive to offer, consider if you can offer that as a premium price. Is to say, yeah, well, you know, it's going to cost 30% extra to get it you know, packed a certain way, or to get, you know, if it's an option people might really want, don't just think, no, we can't offer that. You know, and here's the strange thing is you see occasions of this where people will they'll buy a whole package or something to get one piece of it, or they'll buy something, you know, just to repurpose it another way. The more you know about what people are seeking, you say, well, wait, maybe I can just offer that directly, and you know what, their trouble that they save doing that might be worth something. But I think that's really important just on the basic side when it comes to colors and sizes and any options and variations in the product. Help people navigate that, and if there's an issue, meaning if you're out of stock in a certain realm, or if there's a longer lead time for something, make that as clear and easy as you can. And just to mention Amazon one more time, you know, I've shopped for fine writing pens on Amazon, and one of the things that I appreciate about at least some of the sellers that they partner with is there might be a certain model, and it might come in a different form, so say a ballpoint or a roller ball, and it might come in a different color. Now what that means is each one of those options, different availability, different price, and sometimes different shipping. The great thing about the way they've presented it is that I can move that box, change it from black to gold, and then it'll have the new price right there. I don't have to go back in a circle, because guess what? I didn't come in saying, oh, I definitely want this. I thought, oh, it looked pretty good. And if I find one that's a good value or whatever else, so that's something that I think is particularly well done. I've seen a number of retailers do that, to say, help someone understand. The other thing you might not be surprised is if a given option isn't available, they might be really easily guided towards another alternative. That's the other idea too, is to say, hey, can we meet your needs in another way? Don't assume you can't until you've given it a try.
I've got this one customer that actually makes custom saddles, and there are literally hundreds of options when it comes to a custom saddle. And it's interesting to look at her website, and you go through, and about 30 of the options are listed. You know, would you like latigos with this? Do you want conchos on here? Do you want a particular design imprinted on here? You know, obviously the size of the saddle in terms of the seat size, the length of the stirrups, whatever. I mean, the type of stirrup that's put on the saddle. It's incredible. And in some ways, you know, I know she's trying to be flexible, and it's good, and it does update the price when you pick all these different options, but it can also almost seem overwhelming.
Yeah, and you know what? And I guess that's another thing. This is something I see this on the retail brick and mortar side with restaurant companies, where they have some decent sized brands. You look at their menu board, and they have the options, and there are all these different small variations, and you look at the final price differences, and it's 20 or 30 or 40 cents. And my thought is, you know, a complex product like you're describing, is it possible to maybe offer a grouping of those and say, hey, we have the basic that includes anything in this, the upgrade and the deluxe, and then if you need full custom, fine, but to say we know that most people get a similar basket full of options, and you can pick from a certain set of those in deluxe. Anything you can do to streamline it. Yeah, sometimes you have to get down to that last detail, but I would say avoid that, at least on the way in, and then only get to that for the people who have got such a detailed need.
Yeah. The other part of flexibility that I think is actually pretty important is I build a lot of websites for people that are selling at wholesale to retailers. And retailers have much more complex needs, I think, than consumers do, because you might have one retailer that is working in a kiosk and somebody else that's got a big store, somebody else that's selling online. Just in terms of how much inventory they can take at any one point in time, what kinds of products they need to take, you know, how much, you know, maybe your wholesale business is set up in such a way that you say, okay, I have to have a $500 minimum order or I can't be selling at wholesale to you, but maybe you could do it in such a way that, okay, place a $500 order, but I'm going to bill you in 3 installments for this and actually ship it in 3 installments.
You know, I think people miss that sometimes. The idea that, yes, there might be some, I don't want to call it barrier to entry, but some sort of level where that it becomes worthwhile to offer something. But you're not locked into just one way to offer it. And you said, I mean, I think there's plenty of ways you can do that. The same way that, you know, are we going to have a certain initial charge that can then be applied to purchases beyond a certain level? Or are we going to have a certain customization fee that is then waived after you get to a certain number of units? And that's something I think you really got to look at your own offering and consider how you can do that just to make it easier. Delivery capacity is another thing, is that if you're talking the wholesale realm, letting people know right away those things that are available, saying, you know, we've got X number of units per month available with a certain lead time, but we can do whatever larger amount with a longer lead time. Those are things that can be very helpful if you're trying to do wholesale offerings.
Yeah, so I think what we're talking about when it comes to flexibility is not saying that you have to do all these things, but rather to think in terms of flexibility and how that can impact your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main thing, you know, the question I pose to folks when we're talking about flexibility is, what are those things where somebody just wants something a certain way, or the circumstances have led to maybe a gap between the way things are and what the customer came in expecting? What can we do to close that gap? Simple as that.
Yeah.